You thought retirement would feel like arrival, the long-awaited exhale after years of pressure. No more deadlines, no more proving, just space for each other, for rest, for joy. But the truth is, this retirement turns a marriage into a lifeboat. And lifeboats aren't built for comfort. They're built for survival. Limited space, shared supplies. And suddenly, every decision feels strategic. Who spends what? Who controls the direction? Who does nothing and who resents it? Watch this video to the end. You'll see how money becomes language, how routine becomes glue, and how two people wake up beside each other but realize they're facing opposite shores. This isn't ease, it's exposure, and it's already begun. This is the lifeboat stage. The engine's off, the destination is vague, and now it's just the two of you floating. No schedules to chase, no crises to manage, only time and silence. This isn't the peace you imagined. It's a slow drift, and every decision suddenly feels loaded. Symptom 1. Small expenses turn into arguments. You're not fighting about coffee or subscriptions. You're fighting about control. One partner tightens, the other spends to feel free. The amounts are trivial, but the meaning behind them isn't. It's not about the dollars. It's about who gets to steer. Symptom 2. You imagined freedom. They imagined rest. You want adventure, they want stillness. You pictured reinvention. They pictured finally doing nothing. But neither of you said it out loud. Now, every morning feels like a negotiation between fantasies that never matched. Symptom 3. Your conversations shift. They used to be about what's next. Places, ideas, plans. Now they're about allocations, how to divide time, how to conserve energy. Even love starts to feel transactional. Not because affection is gone, but because everything now feels like a resource to manage. The boat hasn't sunk, but no one is rowing. Because neither of you wants to admit the map was never shared. And that quiet realization that maybe you built a life, but not a vision, leads us to the first fracture that formed long before retirement ever began. The first fracture is called the currency of contribution. For most of your adult life, your value had a measure: money, productivity, usefulness. You brought home income, you ran the house, you raised the kids. You were doing something, and that doing made you necessary. Then, it stops. The paychecks vanish, the children leave, the routine dissolves. And now, the question isn't, what do you do? It's, what are you worth? Now that you don't. This is the invisible shift no one names, because the scoreboard is gone. But the need to feel valuable isn't. That's how this works. Retirement removes the performance, but not the performer. And without a role to justify your presence, you start looking for a new way to prove you belong. Some overfunction. They obsess over tasks, organizing, budgeting, planning just to feel in control. Some underfunction. They disappear into hobbies, television, rest, but it's not joy. It's escape. Both feel the other is doing it wrong. Both feel unseen. And then comes the resentment. The quiet question. Why do I still feel like I have to earn my place? Why do I feel like I'm being watched, judged even here? In rest, this emotional aftershock cuts deeper than most realize. Because it's not just about identity, it's about permission. Do I have the right to exist in this house? If I'm no longer useful, you may not say it out loud, but your body carries it. You get irritated over nothing. You withdraw during meals. You interpret silence as critique. Because when value becomes unclear, every moment becomes proof or punishment. And that quiet desperation only sharpens when two people with different currencies try to spend their time in a future they never actually designed together. The second fracture is the dueling blueprints. You both assumed you were building the same house. But in retirement, the blueprints come out, and they don't match. One imagined travel, long drives, new cities, the freedom to roam. The other imagined stillness, coffee at home. no alarms, a slower life. Neither plan is wrong, but neither was shared. Because during the working years, you didn't need to agree. The job dictated the schedule. The kids set the pace. The mortgage answered the question. What should we do with our money now? There's no default, no urgent need. Only preference, and preference exposes difference. You start disagreeing about things that feel small, where to live, what to spend, whether to downsize. But the fights aren't about those things. They're about identity. Who gets to decide what this next decade looks like? Who sacrifices again? Who gets their turn? Family therapist William Doherty once said, "Most couples don't argue about the money. They argue about what money means." And retirement is full of meaning. To one, it means safety. To the other, spontaneity. To one, it's legacy. To the other, it's a second chance. You're using the same words: security, freedom, balance, but you're pointing at different maps. And in that misalignment, you stop dreaming. You start budgeting, not just with finances, with energy, trust, time, even touch. Because when your vision is met with silence or skepticism, you begin to withhold. You don't ask for what you want. You manage what feels realistic. And inside, you shrink. The dream you carried quietly all those years, it becomes a private grudge. Not because they said no, but because they never asked. And even this dissonance, sharp as it is, still isn't the final break. Because underneath the mismatched maps is the collapse of the structure that once held you both upright. And when that disappears, nothing moves unless someone dares to start paddling first. The third fracture is called the clock that held you together. For decades, your days were shaped by the outside world: alarms, meetings, school drop-offs, grocery lists. You didn't have to design the rhythm, you just followed it. And in that rhythm, the relationship survived. Even when it felt distant, even when the connection thinned, there was always something to do, somewhere to be. But retirement takes that away. No schedule, no momentum, no built-in roles. Now it's just you, in the same house, with too much time and no script. The absence isn't neutral, it's destabilizing. Because without a structure to lean on, you start to notice what's missing. The shared laughter that faded, the rituals that never existed, the touch that stopped meaning something. You don't fall apart dramatically. You drift. You spend hours in separate rooms. You eat at different times. You speak less, not out of anger, but inertia. This is the final mechanism. The deferred value, the dueling blueprints, and now, the disintegrating clock. It doesn't create conflict. It removes the need to engage at all. And that's where the real danger lives, in the quiet erosion of interaction. But even the strongest drift has a current. And if you can find it, you can disrupt the pull. Because what retirement takes away can also reveal where to begin again. Disruption number 1. Name the new currency. Sit down. Not to talk about plans, but to answer one question. What do I bring to this partnership now that money isn't the measure? Not what can I do? Not how can I help? But what part of me still matters here? Maybe it's humor. Maybe it's insight. Maybe it's patience. Each of you writes it down. Then you read it to the other. No comment, no correction, just witness. This disruption matters because without a clear sense of contribution, resentment breeds in silence. You don't need to be useful again. You need to be seen as valuable by choice, not by obligation. It breaks the pattern of silent comparison. Who's doing more? Who's doing it right? Who gets to rest? When both partners name their new currency, they stop keeping score. Disruption number 2. The blueprint interview. This one requires stillness. 2 chairs, 2 pieces of paper. Each partner answers, what does my ideal next decade look like in detail? Where do you live? How do you spend a Tuesday? What are you working toward, if anything? Then, and this part matters, you read them aloud, side by side, No defending, no compromising yet. Just listening. What emerges isn't always conflict. Sometimes it's grief. Because you realize how long you've both carried dreams that were never shared. And in that moment, the argument isn't who's right, it becomes, are we willing to stop assuming the blueprint interview works because it shifts you from survival to authorship? You're no longer reacting to the absence of structure. You're creating one together. And yet, even clarity and shared vision can't carry the weight of what still lingers, the identity you've lost, the role you've outlived, the version of you that no longer fits but hasn't been laid to rest. And unless that part is named, everything you build will rest on something unsaid. Disruption 3. Grieve the role. Keep the bond. You spent decades being something specific, the provider, the organizer, the responsible one, the peacemaker, the earned identity. And then, retirement takes it. Not cruelly, silently, but roles don't disappear without consequence. They leave an outline, a question mark where a name used to be. And most people try to fill that space with tasks, or blame, or avoidance. This disruption begins where the others end. You don't try to reinvent yourself. You mourn the version of you that's gone, out loud, together. You say, this is who I was. This is what I carried. This is what I don't want to carry anymore. You let each other speak not about regret, but about release. This is how you reclaim intimacy, by letting go of the performance. Because retirement isn't about leisure. It's about standing next to someone with nothing left to prove and asking, do I still matter to you, now that I'm just me? When you name your new currency, you remove silent comparison. When you share your blueprints, you stop assuming alignment. When you grieve the old roles, you stop hiding from each other. Together. These 3 aren't a recovery, they're a re-entry. You stop surviving the drift. You start rowing again, not toward the past, but into something uncharted, together, if you choose to. Because the bond isn't gone. It was buried under function, under fear, under fatigue. Now you've cleared the space. Now you can decide what remains. So here's the pattern. Contribution disappears. Vision misaligns. Structure collapses. And here's how you break it. Name your value. Reveal your blueprint. Grieve the role. But don't stop here. Because the next stage is darker when you don't just lose the role. You lose the identity beneath it. The next video is called The Identity Void. What happens when you're no longer useful to anyone? It maps what's waiting on the other side of performance and why most people never name it. Click here, watch it next. Now answer this in the comments. What role are you afraid to let go of? Just name it. No story. One sentence. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't need an explanation. It just needs to be said. You can't keep rowing with someone if you're still pretending to be who you were. Retirement doesn't make life easier. It makes your reflection clearer. Stop looking away.